Small country.
So this story I did know about this. Okay. Oh my God.
I was going to ask you if you heard about it because it's all over.
Hi, and welcome to the SaVeg podcast.
I'm Rose, also known as Cheap Lazy Vegan on YouTube.
And I'm Daniel, one of your favorite guest stars on Cheap Lazy Vegan's YouTube channel.
We're two friends who love to talk about the latest trending topics.
So get comfortable and join us while we give our SaVeg take on just about everything.
You are currently listening to the previous episode of this podcast, but if you would like to listen to this week's episode and get some exclusive content, go over to patreon.com/thesavagepodcast.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back to another episode of the SaVeg podcast.
Yeah.
Lots of news this week.
Lots
of news.
Apparently everything's just kicking off this week.
And Daniel knows nothing.
I'm excited to hear the stories that Rose has.
I feel like if we didn't do this podcast, you would know nothing about what's going on.
Ignorance is bliss. I mean, I think
you don't really follow.
Well, it's because, like, okay, for example, guys, like when I was living at my parents' place, my parents often had the news on, so that's where I got a lot of like, you know, I would know kind of what's going on, what's happening, and I know it sounds really bad to like, but in my day to day, I like think about it. Okay, I go to work, I go to the gym, I do all this stuff, and I'm just like, plus. There was a period of time, and I feel like quite often, even with this podcast, so much of the news is so fucking negative all the time that I'm like, I'm just going to get depressed. Like, almost it's like, obviously it's so important to know what's going on in the world. Like, I shouldn't like negate that, but also there's just so much stuff that sometimes it would weigh on me and I'd feel very like depressed for like days if I like, got really involved in what's going on, or not involved, but like, so you're right. Like, I don't often... Like, I don't have cable. I don't like, so.
Well, to be fair, if I didn't, because I get a lot of it from like social media,
right?
Scrolling and YouTube. I follow a lot of like, news, YouTube stuff. So if I didn't follow that, because I also don't have cable anymore. Yeah. So if I didn't have social media, I probably wouldn't pay attention either, because then, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe ignorance is bliss.
I don't know. I'm torn, guys. Obviously, I'm torn because it's like, it is important to know what's happening in the world. But also, again, so much shitty stuff is happening that I'm just like, oh my God, I'm fucking depressed. Like, it's, yeah.
Well, this is why we have this podcast, and why we can never quit, because this is how you stayed informed of the news, Daniel.
This is true, and that's why we nicknamed it the Doom and Gloom podcast, right? Because fucking everything is fucking depressing.
Everything be depressing, Daniels.
God damn.
Well, this week is a bit of an interesting news cycle. But before we jump in, just letting you guys know, of course, make sure you check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thesavagepodcast. Yeah. Basically, you get every episode a week earlier than everybody else, ad-free content, and bonus episodes every single month, okay?
Which we have to record.
Which we do have to record. But we're thinking, starting in the new year, I think we're going to do YouTube memberships.
Yeah.
We might start it before the new year. Who the fuck knows? Okay. But so that it's easier for people. It'll be like pretty much the same perks as Patreon. Yeah. But it'll be on YouTube. So if you listen on YouTube, and if you like don't want to bother joining Patreon, this might be,
another alternative.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah.
Exciting. And also guys, another quick little announcement before we kick off the today's news. Rose and I are hosting a trip in the Canadian Rockies. This is happening in August 2025. There will be a link in the show notes. So,
are you sure there will be a link, Daniel?
There may be a link in the show notes. And
there will be a link in the show notes. This morning I was like, Daniel, you didn't add the link. And then you were like, well, no, I only added it to the episodes where we talked about it. I was like, Daniel, we talked about it. Trust me.
Shit. So anyway, there will be a link in the show notes, guys, and you can check that out. It's gonna be super fun. We're hitting a lot of the like key spots of the Rockies, like Lake Louise, Banff. There's gonna be some hiking, camping, all sorts of good times, and it's obviously a vegan food, like a vegan tour. So everything will be vegan as well.
It'll be good.
Be delicious.
It'll be delicious. It'll be fantastic. So join us. Only 7 spots left.
Yeah, and maybe, guys, I mean, if you guys are in Calgary, you can also check out Rose's Cafe while you're here.
Yeah. Yeah, if you get here before or after and stay a few days. Yeah. I do have a cafe.
Yes.
SaVeg Cafe. Same name as the podcast.
And I will join because I love the food there, and I'll get some like deliciousness.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's it for the promotions. Is it?
Yep,
I think so. Yep. Okay, so we got to get into the news because there's a lot going on. Okay. It's one of those weeks where it's like there's so many big headline stories, which we will talk about.
Yes.
So first story. This happened last week, I think. So I went to Palm Springs for like a few days.
Yeah.
And it was like right before I left for Palm Springs, I think. It may have been the same day. I remember, so I was like at my parents' house, and my dad, he watches like Korean news, okay?
Yeah.
So he's watching Korean news, and he usually plays like live news on YouTube. So he's like watching Korean live news. And I'm like doing my work, whatever. And then all of a sudden you see this like footage of like military, and you kind of like don't know what the fuck is going on. And then it turns out the South Korean president declared martial law. Do you know what martial law is?
Isn't it when it's when like a country basically martial law, it's like in an extreme situation,
yes,
a country will take like militant law almost, where yes, the military kind of like takes over, they control every aspect, and they're allowed to, when a state or country declares martial law, they can kind of go against like basic human rights in terms of like for the betterment of the society. Like, like for example, like a perfect example of this, from what I understand, is like if like a world war happened, like in World War I or World War II, martial law is like, okay, all young men have to go serve, women have to go. You don't have a choice about it, even though technically it's like against human rights, right? Because it's like you're forcing people into battle, that kind of stuff. But it becomes martial law.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty, like, I was still a little bit confused as to exactly what martial law is, but I think you explained it pretty well. It's
like
kind of like
extreme measure.
Yeah, it's like a very extreme measure where you're not like basically like it's almost like against human rights in a way. Yeah. But in certain circumstances, it might make sense.
I think.
But usually, it's very like not good. It's like, let's say a bunch of people are protesting.
Yeah.
A president can like declare martial law and just fucking like wipe out a bunch of people, like stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think again, it's an extreme measure, yes, and the reason it exists is to, like, for example, you know, obviously a decision in a country can take a long time, right? It goes through parliament or however the country's run, it can take time. But if you like have something drastic happening, they can declare martial law. They don't necessarily have to follow the proper process, and they can like get shit done faster.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, in some ways, it's like, okay, if you're facing a disaster, like something crazy,
yeah,
but it's a really extreme measure.
Yeah. So it says here, I think you explained it pretty well. It says martial law is when the military takes over a civilian government and suspends civilian legal processes in a designated area during an emergency. Yeah. So here's the thing, Korea, as far as we know, everything was fine. Nothing was happening. Fucking no one was. This is not a war. Nothing was fucking happening.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the president, who I would say is like a Trump type president.
Oh God.
He's like a Trump wannabe. Okay. He's not popular. And he decides literally randomly on a fucking random Tuesday or whatever the fuck it was, I'm going to declare martial law. And it was like maybe like 12 or 1 in the morning in Korea. And then my dad was just like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, like,
this
is
very fucking confusing.
Yeah.
At first you're like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, that's kind of scary, right?
It's
like
terrifying.
What do you mean you're declaring martial law? And I think they haven't declared martial law for like decades at this point. Because again, it's a very extreme measure.
Exactly.
So it turns out nothing was fucking happening. And President Yoon President Yoon, because I think people think this is why. Okay. Because this is like essentially the Republican Party, okay, the conservative party of Korea that is in power right now.
Right.
And he has been very, very unpopular because he's been under a lot of scrutiny because of corruption charges. You know, it's fucking always like the case. A lot of Korean presidents, especially the conservative presidents, are under a lot of bribery, corruption charges. So he was under corruption charges. There's also like, there's also rumors that his wife was involved in all this scamming, and also that she's taking orders from shamanism, like just crazy shit, right?
Yeah.
So he's kind of under this threat of impeachment. A lot of people don't like him.
Yeah.
So he's been trying to kind of take power in like a different way, or, you know. So what he did was, because I guess his excuse was that his opposition party was like fucking in bed with North Korea, or like they always bring up North Korea when they want to get something that they want. They're like, oh, they want, you know, they're working with North Korea, when there's no evidence to support this.
Right. Okay.
So that's his like excuse for declaring martial law, because he was like, oh, my opposition
is working with North Korea,
like all this crazy shit, when there's no evidence to support this. So so then he just literally randomly was like, I'm going to declare martial law. But I guess what happens is, I guess the parliament in Korea is is so it's the other government.
Yeah.
So it's like non-Republican. It's like the liberal government. And what happens is when there is martial law, but if the parliament votes against martial law, like a majority, then the martial law has to end.
Right. Okay.
Because Korea also has a very big history with like dictatorships and presidents doing shit like this. So Koreans are quite like sensitive to dictatorships and stuff like that. So like, for example, a presidency is only 5 years and you can't run for presidency twice.
Right. Okay.
Because people are like worried about dictatorships. Like when my parents were young, it was a dictatorship.
Right.
That's how soon, like that's how like,
not that far in the past.
Not that far in the past it was. Exactly. Yeah. So then...
Not that long ago.
Not that long ago. So then I guess what happened was he was trying to overthrow the parliament. This is why he was like fucking deploying troops and like the military to get into the parliament. And then I guess people of the parliament and other people were like blocking it so that the military couldn't go in. So that because like when they go in and let's say they succeed in overthrowing the parliament, then it's like, okay, then it might be like a fucking seriously bad situation. But they did not succeed in going in, and inside the parliament they did like the fucking vote, and it was like literally like 0 votes to maintain martial law. Everyone was like end martial law.
Yeah.
So then like literally 2 hours later President Yoon had to be like, oh yeah, never mind, no more martial law.
This is crazy.
So then it's like I saw all these memes after, and it was like, oh, it was like, President of Korea, I declare martial law. And then someone's like, no. And he's like, oh, okay.
But what was his justification for declaring it?
Crazy. He's like, gone insane.
I thought that like, you know, again, I would feel like most countries have like rough prescribed metrics in terms of like what they can do when they call martial law. So like they could only do it in certain circumstances. And it sounded like it was definitely not justified in this.
This is why like even people in his party were like, what the fuck did you just do kind of thing? Because it was like, why? It's at least because I guess my dad was explaining that he was trying to do a lot of things to kind of like ignite some sort of reaction for some time so that he could maybe do this, right?
Okay.
So he was trying to like poke in North Korea, trying to get them to react.
Right.
But it wasn't working apparently. He was trying all these other tactics because he's so unpopular. And I guess this was like his final kind of attempt.
Right, okay.
But the funny thing is, it's almost like right after that, obviously everyone was like, we need to impeach this motherfucker.
Right.
Because it's like, how do you, like he literally tried to overthrow the government essentially. So it's like, how do you continue as the president after that? Yeah. But I think he wasn't impeached. They like voted, and I guess like he's not impeached. But
which is crazy.
Which is so insane. That's so crazy. But I guess now the latest news, as I see, is South Korea's Justice Ministry on Monday imposed an overseas travel ban on President Yoon Suk-yeol as authorities investigate allegations of rebellion and other charges in connection with his short-lived declaration of martial law last week. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't know how he can, like, continue. So it says, Yoon avoided an opposition-led bid to impeach him. With most governing party lawmakers boycotting a parliamentary vote. Okay. So I guess like his party like kind of protected him.
But then it says, but opposition parties vow to submit a new impeachment motion against him this week. So that's probably why they also imposed the travel ban.
Right.
So that he can't like flee
he can't flee the country.
Exactly. Because, you know, that's what these people like to do. They like to fuck shit up and then say, I'm going to go somewhere where, and they always try to find, and they're strategic about it, right? They'll find a country that doesn't have,
extradition.
Yes, they can't. They
can't extradite him.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's why I remember seeing this like one guy that did something in the U.S. and he ended up moving to some other country where they can't actually bring him back to the U.S. It was more like financial fraud or something, and he was literally stuck. He can never leave this country because the second he goes into a country that does have it, he could be picked up.
Right. So he can't leave.
So he's like, all my holidays are in this country. Everything I do is in this country. Like I can physically not leave this country. Well, I guess he could go to another country that doesn't have.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But crazy as hell.
I mean, because like the thing is, if he does get impeached, there's a chance that he could go to prison, right? Yeah. Because it's like, we have, like, Koreans have put presidents in prison before.
Yeah.
So it is a possibility.
Well, it sounds like he probably should. Like, what was his just, because the thing is, we can't like downplay, like martial law is such an extreme measure for a government to take. So like typically when they do this, it's like, you're going to do it when, you know, like if all of a sudden like Canada went into war with some country and it was getting crazy, Canada might declare martial law, like to be like, the military is going to take over. We're going to figure out what this emergency and we're going to deal with whatever's happening. But it sounds like
his excuse was he accused the opposition of anti-state activities. Again, it's like, oh, you're working with North Korea. No evidence to suggest this. Like, trust me, no one in the government is like, oh my God, like, yeah.
Oh yeah, so he said he will rebuild a free and democratic country through martial law.
Yeah, that's
because
not exactly.
Nothing speaks democracy more than martial law.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
That happened. Happened. So thankfully, at least like Koreans are smart enough to be like, apparently a bunch of people were like heading home from maybe like late night activities, like drinking, whatever. They were heading home and a bunch of people like got off the subway to go and like block the fucking military. Like it was like a crazy shit because like I said, people have memories already of martial law, like these things happening, dictatorships. So it's like,
because it's in our parents' generation.
Exactly.
Right?
It's
so it's like
very like, it's not that old, this type of thing. So they will, like, Koreans are quite protective
sensitive
over the democracy.
Yeah. Well, and I just think it's so funny how he's like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to rebuild this democracy using martial law.
Crazy.
I'm like, this is the most backwards thing I've ever heard. Like, again, nothing speaks democracy like fucking military taking control over a country. What the fuck?
It said, to safeguard a liberal South Korea from the threats posed by North Korea's communist forces and to eliminate anti-state elements, I hereby declare emergency martial law. And again, nothing was happening. Like,
that's what's
crazy. Nothing was
happening.
And North Korea's probably just like, okay. I don't know.
Like, what is going on? But I think I would be surprised, or maybe I wouldn't be surprised, but I feel like he should probably get impeached.
He should be impeached for sure. Like, you literally try to overthrow the government. Like, that is not okay.
Overthrow the government using martial law and militant force. Like, it's crazy.
It's so crazy.
That's
Anyways,
nuts.
hopefully he gets impeached.
Let's see what happens. That's pretty scandalous, and there's a lot going on down in South Korea.
Oh, Korea, such a small country.
So this story, I did know about this.
Okay.
Oh my God.
I was going to ask you if you heard about it because it's all over.
It's crazy.
So we're going to talk about, so this happened a few days ago.
Oh, guys.
Okay? I know. I've been dying to talk about this with you.
Yeah.
So the UnitedHealth CEO, Brian Thompson, so UnitedHealth is a health insurance company in the U.S., okay? And the CEO, Brian Thompson, was gunned down in the middle of the fucking day in Manhattan, New York, by this gunman we just found this out. Someone has been arrested as a person of interest.
Strong person of interest,
yes, someone named Luigi Mangione. But the reason why this made news, you know why it made news, Daniel?
I can't remember exactly. No.
So essentially what happened was this guy, he was the CEO of UnitedHealth, which apparently out of all of the health insurance companies, they deny the most claims.
Right. Okay.
So how health insurance in the US, I mean, insurance in general, how they make money is obviously not by paying out all of their insurance claims, right?
No.
And how they make money is by denying insurance claims. For example, in the United States, where healthcare is privatized.
Yes.
And people have health insurance because, like, obviously, if you don't have health insurance, you're basically fucked because health care is so expensive because the healthcare providers and health insurance companies, they all work together to basically ramp up all the prices to something that is not normal.
Well, it's almost like they've created a market for themselves because by colluding or working with the healthcare system, you know, now it's like, for example, like if Rose and I ever moved down to the US, right? At the end of the day, because of how astronomically expensive healthcare is, it's like I wouldn't not get insurance. Like everybody just has to get insurance. Like you have to either pay for it yourself or maybe your work pays for it. Like if you can afford it, right?
Yeah.
Because they've made it into such a way that, like, for example, even if you're like, you know, you make good money, you're like, I don't really need to get it because if something happens, I can just pay for it out of pocket. Well, actually you can't because like a 3-day stay could be like $100,000.
Exactly.
So because of these things, and all the prices are insane. It's like just to see a doctor for a minute is like $2,000. Yeah. Like it's just
like you use a bar of soap and they charge you like $300.
Exactly. It's like nuts. Yeah. But you're right. I think the main way that these insurance companies do make money is, well, obviously they're collecting their premiums and but the biggest thing is by also really working hard and having a whole team that works to try to like poke holes in claims, basically. Like, oh, Rose, you're claiming this, but you had a pre-existing condition that you didn't disclose from like 20 years ago.
Yeah. And it was probably like I had like a fucking flu.
Yeah.
So exactly. So essentially these insurance companies they literally have teams that, like Daniel explained, where it's like, oh, I'm going to literally go through your entire fucking record.
Yeah.
If after you file this claim, let's say you got cancer or something, you have to get some treatment. Oh, I'm going to go through your entire medical history, come up with loopholes and find little things where I can fully deny your claim. So even though you've had insurance, not that you haven't had insurance, you've been paying your premiums, you've been paying your insurance, but because they found some kind of crazy loophole, they can just deny your claim, and then you can literally be completely bankrupt because you paid whatever out of pocket, or you just can't get service because you don't have money.
Exactly. They'll be like, sorry, Rose, if you read our insurance policy on page 433, section 43C at the bottom in the small print, it actually denies any claims based on XYZ.
Exactly.
Like, did you not read you didn't read our 600-page policy?
Yep.
You're shit out of luck.
So they're very... so this is apparently one of the worst, if not the worst one for denying all these claims. So people do not like this company,
UnitedHealth. Okay.
And it's interesting because once he died, so he got killed.
Yeah.
And apparently the bullets or whatever, is it bullets or whatever that comes out of the gun? There was like a little thing, like words that were inscribed on it. Is it casings maybe?
It's a case. I think it's a casing
or bullet casings. It said deny. So the bullets fired at UnitedHealthcare CEO had words written on them, and apparently said delay, deny, and possibly depose. So apparently this is like insurance lingo. This is things that insurance companies do. So first they delay the claim, and then it's the 3 Ds of insurance, it says. And then they deny the claim, and then they defend by like, if they get sued, then they can defend. And these companies, they're multi-million-dollar companies, if not billion-dollar companies. So they have the, they resources. Have all the power. Like fucking Susie, over here that makes $50,000 a year, can't fucking go against, a multi-billion-dollar
Exactly.
company.
And the worst part is about this whole seedy little industry, guys. The worst part is like a lot of these, like Susie, who's making $50,000 a year, she got insurance because she's like, I can't afford healthcare if shit hits the fan. She pays her premiums on time. She always pays her premiums. Then the first time maybe she's had insurance for 15 years. So she's been paying her premiums for 15 years. God forbid she has to make a claim now because something happened and it gets denied.
So then, and like, this is like life or death, right? So people are saying this guy has blood on his hands. Right? Because his literal job is to deny people claims for their healthcare, which kills, like directly or indirectly, could kill thousands upon thousands of people. So he has killed people. Like, yes, it's indirect, I guess, and it's within a system that allows this, which is the fucked up part.
Exactly.
But essentially, like, this is his job. He's a CEO there. He's made millions doing this. So somebody killed him, and the internet fucking celebrated. And that is why it made bigger news, because it's not just that usually when somebody gets killed or somebody dies, it's like, oh my God, like, like it's obviously a sad situation. But the overwhelming response from people was like, oh, like I couldn't give a fuck, like literal celebrations.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I heard about this story, I didn't know it was for these not potentially, but that it was in relation to insurance claims. I just heard that this.
Well, we don't know, right? We don't actually know the motivation behind it. We can only guess, but obviously if it says delay, deny, depose, probably means it was somebody that was, affected
denied
by
a claim and went bankrupt. And the thing is, the problem is, because I when I heard this story, I was thinking, oh, well, there's so many different reasons why this could have happened. Again, I'm not justifying it, but the first thing that came to mind before we went through this story was thinking, oh, well, maybe it was one of the former employees that were part of like mass layoffs or something along those lines.
That's what you thought?
That's what I had initially thought, because I'm, at the end of the day, what the problem with the whole system and the way that it works is that executive team makes all these decisions for not just based on like obviously the CEO would have said, we want to try to like deny as many claims as possible, right? Like, because we want to make our company as profitable as possible. But by doing that, they're so short-term focused on profit and growth that a lot of these companies aren't doing necessarily the right thing. And that comes down to both with their consumers or their clients, but then also it has to do with their own employees. And like at the end of the day, if you're like, again, laying off tons of people, doing all this stuff, treating your employees bad as well, it's like this stuff might happen more and more. Like it's going to become less surprising because it's like your actions have consequences.
Yep.
Like, I'm not saying that people should kill people, but like at the end of the day, these execs make these decisions, all kinds of crazy decisions about companies. And some of them are really bad decisions that impact thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And they get a little slap on the wrist. They get their $50 million, a year package. And it's like, have fun,
Yeah. The thing is, ultimately, exactly. Like, obviously, no one is saying murder, fantastic, let's fucking kill everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like, but we have to look at why people are reacting this way when most of the time when somebody gets murdered, it's not this kind of extreme reaction.
Right, exactly.
So we have to, and like, obviously this is not a good thing that we're celebrating someone's death. It's more of like a symptom of a rotten system and society.
Yeah.
That we have to kind of like almost like, when this kind of thing happens, like then we feel like somehow vindicated.
Yeah.
Because we know how it's so messed up.
Which is so fucked up. Like, so the whole thing, it's like, obviously it's never great. It's really sad that this even happened, but
is it though?
But it's also
like, sorry, but like because like people are saying like, okay, we allow murder to happen if it's a guy, in a white in a suit, essentially. So like this is kind of indirect kind of killing. Like it is, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe murder is an extreme word, but it's like you're killing people indirectly. If you know what I think the issue is here too, though. Part of the reason why I think we don't know fully. There's a person of interest, but we don't know for sure if they did it. But the thing is, I would guess as well, part of the reason, if this is linked to denying the claims, all this kind of stuff, I feel like also people are at this moment where they're like, they feel helpless and they're like, the CEOs and the executive teams can do whatever they want, but I don't have any course of action. Like I couldn't take them to court because I'll lose. I don't have the money to go up against them. So my options are limited. And unfortunately, I guess this person did take this route. And now I feel like if I was a CEO of some giant, I mean, not that I would be, but if I was and I was doing some shady shit like this, I would be fucking afraid.
Exactly.
And this is why creating a system like this doesn't actually only hurt people that are like poor or like middle class or whatever. Yeah. It does ultimately hurt everybody involved. Yeah. Right? Because even if like, let's say you created the system where, I mean, not let's say, this is the system we're living in where it's like, okay, rich are getting richer and poor are getting poorer. And like, we're having this like huge income disparity and like rich are
growing income disparity,
and then you have poor people or middle class people that are pissed off. So then you have to have extra security. You can't fucking go anywhere that you want to because everyone's fucking out to get you. Eventually you're gonna have to only live in like a very gated community and you can't really do anything without a bodyguard. Is that the world that you want to live in? Because I don't, right?
Exactly.
Like, I don't want to live in the world where I can't go outside without having fucking, like without having to look over my shoulder all the time.
And have a bulletproof vest on and all that sort of thing.
Why would you want to live in that world? And it's like, we could all have so much more like collectively, and you can still have more than the average person without doing all this extreme shit. But like that's not the way our society is designed.
And the scary thing is too, is like, if you think about it, and think about this too, just from traveling and stuff.
Yes.
All of the countries you go to that that are the most unsafe to kind of walk around and do things and all that stuff, they're generally the kind of countries that have massive income disparity, right? Very small middle class and a huge, like a few people that are super wealthy and then everyone else is like struggling. It creates dangerous areas, right? Yes. Like you think of places like Brazil, for example.
Yes, when I was in Brazil, I was like, and we're very spoiled here in Canada.
We are.
Not that it's perfect, but compared to like when you leave the country, you realize how like lucky we are here in Canada. Like, for example, I could leave my phone, and I mean, I probably shouldn't do this, but like if I'm in a coffee shop and I'm working on my laptop, I just go to the bathroom, leave my laptop on the table, come back, never had an issue. Yeah. I could leave my phone on the table, talking to my friends, I did that in Brazil. My friends were like, no, don't leave your phone on the table. Yeah. And even if I had my phone trying to take a picture, they're like, don't do that. Like someone's going to snatch it. And it's like, these risks are of course they're higher in countries where people are poorer
and like, they're struggling. Makes sense. Well, because exactly, and you can't blame the people. They're just trying to survive, right? Or they're like, you know what, I can't pay for anything. Some tourist leaves their phone on there. There's a meal ticket. I'm hungry. I need food. Like it's a reality. So
Let me read you some comments that people have left, because this is how much people don't give a fuck.
Holy shit. Let's hear it.
Actually, they happen to be like celebrating this. Okay, so again, they had posted, maybe UnitedHealth, they had posted on Facebook, I think initially. It was like, oh, we mourn the death of our CEO, blah, blah, blah. And like, usually on these posts, and again, this was on Facebook, right? Yeah. There were like maybe like 20,000 laughing emojis. And people commented things like, I'm sorry, prior authorization is required for thoughts and prayers. Sending prior authorization denied something, prayers to his family. According to his own company, my husband's heart attack wasn't an actual emergency and we were out $3,000. It's crazy what my first thought was. Then I looked at the comments and realized I'm not alone. I just can't find the care. Maybe if they ask for pre-approval of my care, then after they care their required deductible, I might be able to supplement some care. I can't even pretend to care. Hope he's looking up at us. Because it's like they see this, and like, again, I don't even blame them. It's like they see him as almost like a murderer. Because imagine if you had like a family member that passed away because they got denied their insurance claims and they didn't get the care that they needed. Yeah.
Or not even just that. It's like if you yourself had like you went to hospital, it was an emergency, whatever it was, then you're out $30,000 or $40,000 struggling to already make ends meet, but now you have this huge bill you got slapped with. Yeah. And then you're trying to make a claim and they're like, nope, sorry, you're fucked. And then you're struggling because you can't pay for anything. Exactly. You're like, now I'm saddled with all this debt.
And you know what's interesting is you'd think that this is like we talk about this all the time, right? You have the Republicans and the Democrats and the right and the left, and the right-wing position almost always is more extreme on the private everything front, right? They want everything privatized.
Of course.
Including healthcare. I mean, but they're all like in the US, like even the Democrats are not for public healthcare. Yeah. Okay, let's be real here. But the Republicans are much more pro private healthcare. But even then, people that are seemingly right wing, which again, I feel like, well, why the fuck did you vote right wing then if you feel like this? But even then, they have grievances. And I'm like, do you not realize that you are voting into a system that continues this? I don't get it. But like, for example, Ben Shapiro. Yeah. So he did a segment talking about this. And of course, he was like, oh, how dare you celebrate the death of somebody? Like, without realizing, okay, like, let's look into this a little bit deeper. He's just like, oh, like, this is disgusting. Like, why would you celebrate the death of, of somebody? Like, he was a father and blah, 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 blah. And then the comments under his own video. So these are people that normally watch him, right?
Yeah. So these are all generally more kind of right-winged kind of.
So let me read. So, and the title of his video was "The Evil Revolutionary Left Cheers Murder." And I'm like, well, what's more evil? Someone cheering murder or somebody literally making millions off of denying people healthcare, which leads to their death?
Exactly.
Sorry. Someone wrote, this has 13K likes. It's not left or right. It's not black or white. It's rich versus poor. Your true colors are showing. And then someone wrote, let's see. I'm not buying this left versus right shit anymore. Ben, I want healthcare for my family. Ben always forgets that his beloved Israel has universal healthcare, yet he is saying how it wouldn't work in America. Just because the left likes something doesn't mean you have to instinctively hate it. Wake up and read the room. And then someone wrote, fact, both left and right are cheering. We don't care about your feelings. Wow. You're wrong, Ben. I'm that evil leftist you always rage about. I have an uncle who is as conservative as they come, voted for Trump and everything. We have very little in common and avoid each other at holiday parties. I can tell you we both wept when my dad slowly died of cancer while the insurance he paid for kept denying him life-saving care. We both saw the injustice in that. The same uncle is posting on Facebook right now how he couldn't give a fuck about no CEO. Insurance companies kill millions of people a year and they don't discriminate between leftists and conservatives. So again, these are all every single comment. This isn't a left-right issue. It's about working class versus the wealthy, blah, blah, blah. But it is kind of a left versus right issue because the right wants more of this to happen. Yeah. And like we always talk about, when you have extreme capitalism and you have a system, especially when it comes to things like healthcare, when that's privatized, of course this is going to happen.
Exactly.
Like we always
you've turned it into a for-profit organization. Insurance companies, again, all of these big companies, the company that, what was it, United Healthcare, their whole goal as a company is not to help people. It's to make money. Like it's to be profitable, right? Yeah. And let's just take a look, just out of curiosity.
And they were apparently doing like shady ass shit. Like, I mean, obviously they were doing the whole thing is shady, but they were doing shit like using AI to deny people claims. Just like, so in 2023, they made 281 billion in 2023, and while Thompson himself
enjoyed a 10.2 million annual pay package.
UnitedHealthcare has the highest claim denial rate of any private insurance company at 32%. It's double the industry average.
Yeah.
So 32%. 32% of the claims of people that have already paid into their insurance are denied.
And yet the company's turning around 2023 revenue of $281 billion US dollars. A CEO making 10 point whatever million. 10. Now he's dead at what, 50 years old? Yeah.
This is what happened. Again, it's like, not saying vigilante justice is the way forward.
Yeah.
But when you have a system where people feel like there's no other
alternative or option,
and again, we don't know if this is the motive. We can only guess. We don't know much about
until
this
more comes out
yet.
About this, right?
But at the same time, it's like the fact that we are celebrating this. I'm honestly surprised that this hasn't happened sooner, to be honest with you.
And I'll be honest with you guys. Like, my concern or fear is just the direction the whole world is going. And I feel like this is just the start of like more and more things that are going to start happening, right?
Yeah.
Because you're getting people, this is just one example, but because of how the economy is going, how costs are going up, wages are staying stagnant, there's mass layoffs happening. These big corporations are just worried about profit. That's it. They don't care about anything else. It's concerning because I'm like, what is going to happen to general society? Like, are we going to start seeing more of this where we have vigilante justice? Again, we don't know for sure, guys, but like, let's just say we start seeing more of this where, people that are making these huge decisions, be it layoffs, be it denying claims, be it, not like Amazon, for example, not properly processing returns and just throwing them out into the, rubbish. Things like this is up until this point, I feel like a lot of these people have not been held accountable.
Yeah.
They just kind of do it and then they're actually rewarded like with millions and millions of dollars. So it's kind of like, I feel like this is just the beginning. I could be wrong, but let's see, as people get more and more desperate, as things get more expensive, you're making less, you can't feed your children, you start to become in a place of desperation, right? Yeah. So I don't know if this is just the tip of the, beginning of the, more of this.
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that people have this reaction because I always thought like, and anytime we've also talked about like healthcare in the US and how it's like fucked up that it's like basically privatized and it's all, like a for-profit game.
Yeah.
We've had people being like, yeah, but like in Canada, you have to wait forever
10 hours
blah, blah,
to see a
blah.
doctor.
And it's like, so it seemed that there was enough people that were at least brainwashed enough to think that this is the system that they want.
Yeah.
But it sounds like even the right wing are kind of waking up to it, which is quite interesting.
Which is wild. That's actually really interesting because again, like to have people, especially in that Ben Shapiro like video and stuff, to have his followers commenting like, what are you talking about? Like this impacts all of us. Because this is, and again, guys, this comes from number one, the kind of setup of privatized industry that the US has in terms of healthcare. But also again, guys, it ties back to capitalism. Yeah. Like, the UnitedHealthcare, the reason they're denying these claims is because they want to make more money to get better returns for shareholders and to give bonuses to the executives. There's no incentive for them to necessarily
provide the care.
Exactly. There's no incentive. They're not incentivized to say, hey, actually, let's try to have the lowest denial rate in the industry. Let's be a trendsetter. Well, they don't want to do that because then instead of making 281 billion in 1 year, maybe they only make God forbid 150 billion. You know what I mean? Like,
but I also wonder, even though we see under Ben Shapiro's video, these, even right-wing people that are, happy about this guy's death, but I'm wondering, like, are they seeing the forest or the tree? Like, are they seeing it as an actual problem of the system itself, or are they seeing that, the insurance companies are the evil ones, but I still want a private system? Because I don't think that one can exist without the reason why the insurance companies are like this is because of the system of which it is under.
Exactly. Well, there's the two issues, is the system that it's under, the privatized healthcare, and the kind of self-funding industry that they've created. Yeah. And then the other issue is, again, like, all of these companies are not incentivized to necessarily do the right thing for their consumers. Like the fact that they're like 32%, double the industry average of denials, and they're like, making amazing profits. The CEO's walking away with tons of money. That's what they're incentivized to do. Yeah. And until the incentives change or get modified, that's never going to change. So we can get angry with these companies all we want. Yeah. But at the end of the day, and we saw this, again, I'm trying to link this to also, like, not link it to, but like when we saw that Buy Now documentary, there was some people that were in it that were seniors at other companies. And they said, look, as a CEO or as a, maybe as a really senior exec person, if I went to my board of directors and was like, hey, Amazon's another example, which I mentioned earlier, is like, hey, actually, let's find out a sustainable way for us to like reintegrate returns back into our network and send them out to somebody else that could use them. But it means that our profit is we're going to be half as profitable as we were this year. It will never happen. Like, they'll be laughed out of the room. In fact, they'd probably get let go. So there's no incentive for them to behave in that way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost like, we can blame the company, and we can for sure. Yeah. Like, it does take someone, a very special person, to work in that kind of industry and feel fine with it. Yeah. And, sleep fine at night. But also, but I think the bigger picture is like the system of which you've privatized something as essential as healthcare.
Exactly.
And you only provide, because like in the States, I'm sure if you are a millionaire, you get the best healthcare in the world.
100%.
It's probably a fucking amazing experience.
Yeah.
So when people are like, oh, but like, I like in Canada, I heard you have to wait. Yeah, but you wait based on need. So it's like, if I walked into an emergency room and I had a fucking bullet wound and I was about to die, they would help me first.
Of course.
Right? It's like, they would help me first. And I'm not saying Canadian system is perfect. There's definitely many flaws to it, but that doesn't mean that I don't want a system of public health care.
Yeah. I never want to worry in my mind. Like, it's like if I got hit by a car as I'm leaving Rose's house, God forbid, or something like this, I never want to fear in my mind, like, actually, no, don't take me to the hospital because I can't afford it. It's like, I don't even want to think about it. I want to go get my treatment and then be like, cool, I'm done.
Or what happens is sometimes if you're in an emergency situation, they'll take you to a hospital and you have insurance, but the insurance is not within the network. So then, like, let's say the hospital, like, you have a certain number of networks or whatever hospitals that you're allowed to use. So if you are living in somewhere, maybe you're visiting your friend and then you get into some kind of fucking accident and then you get rolled into a hospital and that's outside of your network and they treat you, then you're billed for the entire thing.
Yeah,
or
you're not covered.
You'll be like, oh, can you move me to the hospital? And then you might die on the way to the other hospital.
That's crazy.
Like, it's fucking crazy. This is why you cannot privatize certain things. But yeah, let's see what the situation is with this guy. So the guy, Luigi Mangione, arrested as a strong person of interest in the killing of United CEO. Yeah. So he was arrested in Pennsylvania after he was spotted at a McDonald's. Okay. So let's see. He was a high school valedictorian, interesting, from Maryland Prep School, earned undergraduate and graduate degrees in computer science. Okay. So.
But does it say why?
We don't know. It says his posts are suggest that he belonged to a fraternity. Okay. We don't know. Okay, so he had a high GPA, so he was a smart guy. Yeah. He was arrested at McDonald's. We don't know why. I think we're gonna probably find out relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Why he did this. One can only guess. But yeah.
It's gonna be interesting.
It's gonna be very interesting. I wonder why there wasn't a good guy with a gun to save him.
Well, this is it, guys.
It's another thing that...
Where was the person, because everyone has guns. So because, guns make the country safer, allegedly. Unfortunately, there was no one else in the presence with a gun that could have shot him down first.
So crazy.
In self-defense, So
apparently he was, the CEO was in Manhattan for an investors meeting. And he got shot before the meeting. The meeting carried on. This is how fucking... careless people are here. It's just heartless.
This is the thing. They get mad at all the society, as everyone's having all this backlash. They didn't even fucking pause the investors meeting. Yeah. It's like, oh, we'll just continue on.
Yeah.
CEO got shot, so we're going to have to do some PR spin on that one. God. Yeah, it's crazy.
So speaking of income inequality, so I heard this story. So apparently, U.S. plutocrats, very rich people, essentially, are $276 billion richer. That's the key word here.
Yeah.
Since Trump win. So, and this was in November. When was this? It was like a few days ago.
Yeah.
November 21st.
So in like a month.
So within not even a month, like couple weeks after Trump win, they were already $276 billion richer.
Yeah.
As in they gained $276 billion on top of the billions. So this is why people like Elon Musk wanted Trump to win.
Yeah, of course.
Because why would they not, right? So, yeah. So an analysis released Wednesday showed that the United States' 815 billionaires have seen their combined wealth surge by roughly 280 billion since Donald Trump's victory.
Listen to this. And of those, obviously, Elon's a big thing. Elon Musk, the world's wealthiest man and a Trump confidant, he accounted for 20% of the total billionaire wealth surge, with his own net worth growing by $57 billion in just a week. Just a week.
57 billion.
Yeah.
What is the point of all this?
Exactly. Like
it's so crazy.
It's just guys, like when you think about it, it's just like such unfathomable amounts of money. Like nobody needs to be this rich. It's just crazy. And it says they found that U.S. billionaire wealth is now at an all-time high, the highest it's ever been, of $6.7 trillion. So you know how we talked about last episode, I think maybe 2 episodes ago, we talked about this graph where they showed, and this was from a YouTube video from 12
10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 or 12 years ago. And it showed a graph of how, the income disparity basically in the US and how it's been growing. Well, this only exacerbates the problem, right? Yeah. Like $276 billion between 815 people.
So crazy.
Nuts.
Absolutely crazy.
It's insanity.
And yet again, like this is what happens when you elect a billionaire that only wants to work for billionaires, but yet he pretends to want to help regular people.
Yeah. It's just nuts. There's so many things that could happen with tax reforms and things like that that would help to negate or at least put more controls in this whole situation, because there's so many loopholes and so many things that these people are doing. It's just crazy. It's crazy to me. It's like the whole system is
so rigged.
It is so rigged. Like I even think to my own personal like tax situation, and I was like doing some stuff, and like I happened to buy an investment property, and when you own an investment property in Canada, all of a sudden now there's so much stuff that you can write off. Like you can write off the mortgage interest as an expense. All of these things that again are helping people that are already, you know what I mean? Like it's like a weird, and obviously I'm still doing it. I'm part of the, I'm in the game, guys.
You're in the game. Well,
you can't.
Don't hate the player.
Yeah.
Hate the game.
The system, the system is fucked.
Yeah. One final story, which is interesting. So UK lawmakers vote in support of assisted dying.
Oh, so this is MAID, right?
This is what?
Medically assisted
suicide, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it stands for, but like, yeah, it's like, I guess it's like euthanasia.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know if it's the same. I think there's some kind of distinguishing between euthanasia and like, no, it's the same thing, isn't it? Euthanasia might be more like when you're doing it to somebody else, but maybe this is like when it's like you want to do it. I don't know. Who the fuck knows? So this apparently was quite, I still don't know why this is controversial.
Yeah.
But like, I guess it is. So I guess British members of parliament have voted to legalize assisted dying, approving a contentious proposal that would make the United Kingdom one of a small handful of nations, which Canada is included in this, to allow terminally ill people to end their lives. So they voted in the House of Commons 330 to 275 to support the bill.
Interesting. I think the reason why this is so controversial, like why this topic is so controversial when you think of medically assisted like suicide, basically, they're talking about this is only for people that are terminally ill. So that's a kind of a different category, I guess. But when you think of medically assisted suicide, it's like, I think part of the reason why it causes so much controversy is there's this thought that, people that are doing this they're not in their right headspace. Like they, you know, like nobody in their right mind is going to want to die. But like there are some people that actually legitimately do. They don't want to be on this planet. They don't want to be around. And I think that...
Well, I think it's usually with these laws... I'm pretty sure in most countries they have quite strict laws even within this medically assisted suicide. So it's not just, I just don't want to live.
Exactly.
It's like you have to have all this, like you have to have some kind of chronic illness that isn't, you know, you're not able to recover from. You have to be like terminally ill, like fucking 6 months to live. You have to be in like pain. Like there's a lot of things. I think as far as I'm concerned, you can't just be like, hi, I'm like depressed. Yeah. Fucking kill me. Like you can't do that. So it's like, I don't think it's like, I think that's what people's concerns are, but people don't realize that it's like there is a lot
of categories.
I think so.
And I do think, like, you know, honestly, if someone is terminally ill, like I do think that this should be an option for them, because like you think about yourself, like, you know, obviously people are like, oh, I'm going to try my hardest to like stay alive and stuff. But if you get something and it's like, yeah, you have 6 months to a year to live, your quality of life is shit. You really like, you're in constant pain, like not even just like a little bit of pain, like debilitating pain, all this stuff. You know, there should be an option for you. I feel like, to be able to be like, actually, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to fight. I want to, you know, and there's no reason for me to, because it's not like I can cure this. Like, I'm done.
Yeah. And this is crazy because, again, I will never understand why this is very controversial, because I'm like of this firm belief that this is your fucking choice at the end of the day, right? It's like, and also people die from suicide all the fucking time. In some countries, suicide is like the leading cause of fucking death. Yeah. It is very common for people to do this. So it's not like it's going to stop anybody. Like it's just, but I guess it's like they don't want to legitimize it, right? Yeah. But it's like when you have, like if you're terminally ill, if you're in pain constantly, and if your quality of life is not going to improve and it's not improving. Yeah. It's like the most obvious thing is like, okay, if that person who has all of these factors that are horrible wants to not be here anymore, and they want to go, like, it's called dying with dignity. Like if they want to die with dignity, and they want to be surrounded by their friends, and they want to go in peace when it's a painless process, they want to, you know, end their life in their own way, not by like fucking dying of a stroke or whatever, some kind of crazy thing that happens to them at the end. Because like we don't know, like these people that are terminally ill, they don't always just like, you know, like peacefully go. They might be in fucking pain for hours and then go. Yeah. So maybe instead of doing that, they want to just go painlessly. Exactly. But it's like, I don't get why people are so against this. Because like even this bill, it says it allows people with terminal condition and less than 6 months to live to take a substance to end their lives, as long as they're capable of making the decision themselves. So they already have less than 6 months to live. Yeah. And you're going to fucking make them suffer for the 6 months before they fucking go. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. Like, it's not like there's any hope that they're going to fucking, you know, live. You think within 6 months are going to come up with some kind of fucking cure for this? Some
magical thing. Or sometimes when doctors say you have 6 months to live, they could also be like underestimating as well. Because sometimes they'll say, oh, you have 6 months to live, and then a person lives like 10 years, you know? So there's that, but it still. It is
true, yes. Yeah. Like, I understand that, I guess, like, okay, if you were to say, oh, you know, there's always like a little bit of hope, but I don't know.
But I do feel like it should be that person's choice, because
I think so.
Even with like a little bit of quote unquote hope, well, what does that look like? Is that going to be like in pain, like chronic pain for years and years to come? Like, what is your quality of life overall? And like, you know, I really feel like, well, thankfully we're in Canada, so we could do this if this ever happened. But like, I always think about myself, like if something crazy or drastic happened to me that, you know, really impacted my life, and I knew that I didn't have much time to like live. I don't know if I guess I'd make that decision when I'm there, but like, you know, I'd like to have the option.
Exactly. Because it's like, what's the alternative? You're fucking a vegetable on the hospital bed and again, and everyone around you is having like, because like it also is such a burden on everyone else, and not to like, you know, be like, oh, you should just die because you don't want to be a burden, but like sometimes it's like, okay, again, like everything's been done, can't do anything else. I don't feel like I'm living. Everyone else around me is just sad all the time. They can't move on because I'm still here and I'm in pain. It's like, I don't know. Like, I think the option should be there. And I don't get why it's like, oh, it's like, we can't make it legal. Like, it's shocking to me how little countries allow this still. And we do this with animals. Like, we allow animals the grace to go. Like, dogs, like, it seems obvious when it's like your dog or your cat that's has some kind of cancer or some kind of illness.
Yeah.
And they're in pain and you can see that their quality of life is shit. And we make that decision for them.
Yeah.
And some people do it very easily. Like not easily, but like, it happens all the time.
This is the thing. We allow it for pets.
And we can see that, oh yeah, for the dog, it's like, oh yes, this dog is suffering. Like we can't let this dog suffer any longer.
Yeah.
But for some reason, because of our like weird obsession with human life, which I get because we're human, but it's like, we think that we're so sacred that like, even if we're suffering, we should fucking be on this earth when, there's 8 billion of us and we're just a speck in the fucking universe.
Oh my God. A speck floating in the universe.
So it's like, I'm scared of death just as much as the next person. But if somebody that, is ready to let go and it's just in pain and suffering, because ultimately they're probably, if they have the option, they'll probably kill themselves anyway.
Exactly. Well, it was saying in this article, I guess for some places they were like the option. Oh yeah. They were saying under a current criminal law, the only choice for most people who are terminally ill, if they're facing an agonizing death, is between suffering, Switzerland, or suicide.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. And it's like, I would rather, it's like suicide is not something people want to do, but if you have an option to do, again, go with dignity, when your family knows what's happening, but instead of having to leave a note, do it in secret and your family finds out, and it's like that is like, come on, that is much more traumatizing.
Exactly. Whereas versus you take some little substance, you kind of like, people know what's going on.
Exactly. You can prepare, you say all your goodbyes, you do all these things. So it just makes more sense.
Definitely.
I don't know. I just don't get why so many are like, I don't get why this isn't more widespread.
Yeah, I think maybe it will over time. Who knows?
It's like right now, apparently Canada, New Zealand, Spain, and most of Australia allow assisted dying in some form, as do several U.S. states, including Oregon, Washington, and California.
Interesting.
So is that all? Like, is that like, that's like a handful. Like, that's shockingly low to me.
It's crazy.
Which is insane. Like, I don't understand.
No, there must be more because I think it didn't include Switzerland there, right?
Okay, there are some countries. So medical aid in dying is legal in some countries, including Australia, Belgium, Canada, Germany, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Portugal, Spain, Switzerland, parts of the U.S., and all 6 states in Australia.
And then it says here, constitutional courts of Colombia, Germany, and Italy have legalized assisted suicide, but their governments have not yet legislated or regulated the practice.
Oh, interesting.
So
it's still very not common.
Like, look at a map, you can see it's not. Oh many.
Yeah, there's a map here, and it's like very little. It sounds like.
Yeah.
And Canada takes up the majority of it because Canada's a big country.
It is, yeah.
But if you actually look at the number of countries, and Australia is also a big country.
Yeah, but you notice a big chunk of Australia is missing because one of their states doesn't allow it.
Oh yeah, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is just tiny little blue little blobs. So yeah, if you're in Russia, like, good luck.
Yeah. Well,
you got to fly to Canada.
Exactly. Well, I was thinking, or I wasn't thinking. I saw this. It was like one of these Netflix documentaries and stuff. I haven't watched it yet, but they were talking about how obviously like our diet is linked to our health and everything else. And they're seeing overall, like, as we're eating more processed foods and things like that, our metabolisms are getting weaker. Like, no, metabolisms are, what is it called? Why can't I think of the word? Our immune systems.
Our immune systems.
So overall, because we're having highly processed foods full of already antibiotics, things like this, overall our immune systems are getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and we're more susceptible to getting these like kind of like life-threatening illnesses.
Oh God.
And this is going to be a trend that we're going to see increasing over time. So
like, we're going to get unhealthier over time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Anyway, on that positive note.
On that very positive note, we're ending in assisted suicide.
God damn.
Damn.
Got dark as hell, guys. Yeah. So.
Guys, don't you love listening to our very cheery podcast?
Always
a great time here.
Insightful and thoughtful, you know.
Yeah,
mindful, demure.
Okay, Daniel, demure was a month ago. Thank you. We don't do that anymore.
No.
That's way past. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Lots of big stories. Let us know in the comments. If you are listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, let us know in the comments your thoughts on any of these lovely stories that we discussed.
Yeah. And of course, guys, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/the SaVeg podcast. You get all episodes a week before everyone else. It's all ad-free content, and we do an exclusive episode every single month. We got to record December, so that's going to be happening.
We got to record December. And of course, make sure you check out the Canadian Rockies hiking and camping trip. It is linked below, my friends. And there are only 7 spots left if you want to come along in August of 2025 to the Canadian Rockies and meet us both. And we're going to camp and we're going to hike, and it's going to be a great time. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.